Welcome to the Kim D Snyder Show, episode number 114. It is Friday, November 5th, 2021. It is day 65 on my journey to seven figures, one woman, 20 hours a week. Let me share with you mistakes when working with a consultant. And this came about after working with a business owner recently. And here's some mistakes that I see that are common and that came up. First one is the definition of a project is a start and an end with a clear objective. So if you start with that, you need to make sure what you're going to get at the end. You also need to make sure you have an ending date. You also want to be clear about what you want the deliverable to be and what it's going to do for you. So for example, some of the types of things you might hire a consultant for is define some requirements of software that you want. That could be one part of the project, or it could be a standalone project. Determine the best CRM software that we need using those requirements. So it could be either part one and part two. And we're going to use that to determine which software we want to purchase. So it's really clear on what you're going to need and why and how you're going to use it. The other thing is be clear on either the number of hours or the dollars that you want to spend. Otherwise, costs will go out of control. If you don't have those items, what will happen is you'll bring a consultant and then they'll just work on whatever they want to work on. And before you know it, you're going to have a really high expense. And so make sure that you are really clear about what you want. If you have a good consultant, they will actually be super proactive and come to you. What would you like me to work on? Generally, they won't sign anything that's very vague like that. You will be signing something that's very, very specific. So work with that. The other thing that I also see people fail at is no status of where they're at. You should be getting a weekly status, and it could be a verbal status. Generally, you're going to want it written, but you want to see exactly where you're at on the progression of that project and where you're at on the budget. The one thing that I see people totally forget about is if you have a deadline, that means you have to have something beforehand to review and give feedback so that you're complete on the deadline. It's not when the item is due to you. So, for example, if we continue the example with the requirements for software, you're not going to get the requirements on the due date. You're going to get the requirements draft and give some feedback. There'll be some more updates, get a little bit more feedback, and then it's due. And that's the final version is due at that point. For the show notes for this episode, please go to kimdsnyder.com/114.